Okay, sorry
Yeah.
for the delay. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Shipra Karnik, and on the behalf of Aposish Pharma Consultancy, I'm here to host the webinar third under the campaign Decoding Pharma, a knowledge-based webinar series. Today, we are presenting Role of Bioinformatics in Computer-Aided Drug Design and Discovery, presented by Ms. Shruti Anand Kolgi. Just before we get started, I would like to inform you if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the question box or in the query box. We'll discuss after the end of the presentation. Now, without further delay, let me introduce you today's webinar speaker, Ms. Shruti Kolgi. She has completed her master's in bioinformatics from the University of Pune in 2008 and has been associated with CDAC Pune for the past 12 years. Her research expertise lies in molecular modeling and simulations of biomolecular systems and computer-aided drug discovery. She has worked on understanding the mutational effects of the cancer protein p53 and has published her work in peer-reviewed journals. She also has expertise in handling membrane protein systems and understanding the activation and inactivation in the presence and absence of drug molecules. Her research work in COVID-19 has dealt in understanding the effect of the drug molecule remdesivir of the viral polymerase and other small molecules on main protease. So I would now hand over the session to Ms. Shruti. Yes.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Shipra, for the introduction. So I'll walk you through a few of the steps that are important in drug discovery and as well as where does bioinformatics play a role. So is my slide visible to everyone? Yeah, I suppose yes. Okay. So to
Yes,
begin with,
yes.
yeah, to begin with, what exactly is bioinformatics? So the bio part which is there, that is nothing but the biological entities that are surrounding us, which include the plants, animals, the humans, the unseen biological entities that are not visible to the naked eye. Those are the bacteria, viruses, and other microbes. So there is a lot of information in the form of DNA sequence, RNA sequence, protein structures, which is present in each of these biological entities, which comprise the biology part of the this entire bioinformatics. So this all is what we can see and understand. So to process this in the computers using the information technologies where the informatics parts come makes its major role, and how in informatics it plays a role through these different types of technologies, like storing of these entire information we require huge databases. Then studying these systems, we require huge computational power for which we require supercomputers. And because there is research going on worldwide in this particular in our field of medical as well as the health drug development, there has to be a connectivity for which now the cloud now or from far decade, what if you couple of decades, the cloud computing is also taken the front seat, and of course our personal workstations where we do the researchers sit and actually do the complete analysis of the data. And then in order to make this all very much feasible, we require software development. So all in all, the input provided for this informatics parts is from the biological entities around us, and the processing, understanding, and applying different other basic sciences such as biochemistry, biophysics in order to understand the biology is what exactly is bioinformatics. So to begin with, we all know that the central dogma of biology is first occurs is the DNA replication, then occurs is the transcription where the mRNA is formed, and then results in protein synthesis that is called as translation. So at each of these levels, there are different biomolecules that are involved in the life cycle process. Similarly, analogous to that, in bioinformatics, what is the central dogma? The central dogma is initially we have the sequence, which is a DNA sequence or an RNA sequence or the genome sequence of that particular organism. Then the second level is the structure, like the protein, the DNA, the RNA. What is the structure? How does it look? What are the shape? What is the shape that it takes? That is what is the second step. That is the structure. And finally, after attaining this structure, what is the function that it gives? That is whether it is involved in any pathway, is it resulting in any enzymatic reactions, is what we study through the bioinformatics. As we know, in replication we talk about genome, this is transcriptome, and this is translation, so proteome. On this, whatever analytics, whatever understanding we develop, we put an omics word which we are normally hear, that is genomics, proteomics, metabolomics, transcriptomics. So that is where the entire bioinformatics is concentrated into these fields. So as today's main topic is about drug discovery and drug development, let me walk you through the traditional drug discovery process. So this is in a very simplistic words what I have written. First step is identification of target. I will go into each of these in details and also speak about the role of bioinformatics in each of these steps. So first is you find a target. Target means it can be any biomolecule to which you want to search a drug for. Okay, and that time you have a huge number of already available chemical entities which are there are so much studies done in drug discovery. There are huge lot of chemical entities which have the probable potential of becoming probable drug molecules. So we have that entire lot and the defined target for which we want to study or we want to develop the drug. And then comes generating a hit. Hit is a word which is used once once few of these chemical entities are filtered out and then show potential of being a drug. So when they reach that particular stage where we have to synthesize them or study their binding with the target proteins is where we call is that as generating a hit. And later on, development of that drug, and finally the safety and efficacy, which is doing the trials. Each of these steps will be explained in detail further. So safety and efficacy, here I have written here IND. IND is the investigational new drug. So here we read these out of these 10,000, say around 10,000 chemical entities, we come down to around at least 5. We filter out so many and we come to a very highly potential drug molecules that are the which come around 5 molecules or so. So those that is the phase where we enter the investigational new drug stage. And further, if they pass through these clinical trials, which is a major part of the safety and efficacy, then it results in a new drug administration, which is further put forward through the to the FDA, the department to the food admin and drug administrative department, where it undergoes its checks and then finally gets approval. So this entire stage, this first 3 steps are involved a part of the discovery, whereas the next step, safety and efficacy, is the validation of this particular discovery, and finally the last stage, approval. So this is the timeline what is actually required for a traditional drug discovery process. So the bioinformatics role is actually to either shorten this or facilitate better and faster results that we can get and make the drug possible available as early as possible. So looking at the first, what is finding a target? For a target means you should first know what is the role of that particular target in pathophysiology. Like if there is any change in the enzyme level, which we come to know through the pathological tests that we do, then we go and target that particular protein. And it should be a unique protein where it shouldn't be important for other bodily functions which might get affected if this is blocked or increased in its.
Just a minute, ma'am. Your
Yeah.
slide isn't moving further. Make it a full screen view.
Yeah, it's full screen only. What is the slide title now?
Role of bioinformatics. It's title slide.
Yeah, now.
Yes, it's traditional drug discovery process.
Okay. So the
Is it in the
this slide was not
slideshow?
visible. Yeah,
Is
it's a
it in the
slideshow.
slideshow view?
Yeah, it's a slideshow. Yeah.
Because we can see in the PowerPoint view only.
Okay, just a second. I'll share my entire screen then instead of just a window.
Yes.
I'll do it again. Now is it the full screen view?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now it's perfect. Yes.
So these were the test steps that I spoke about earlier. If in case you have not been able to see the slide, the first step is finding a good drug target, then generating a hit. Hit means the drug, which hit means the molecule which has crossed a few of the filters and then has the potential of becoming a drug. Then finally, drug development, where the actual synthesis of the drug occurs and the experiments to see how it works is performed. And next comes the safety and efficacy, where we have an investigational new drug, IND. This is the one which is used for the, like, these are around 5 compounds or so from when we start from around 10,000 compounds and come to these 5 compounds which are subjected to animal and human clinical trials. And further, after passing those phases, the it is termed as the new drug administration, and means for which we undergo the FDA approval. That is the Food and Drug Administrative Approval. This entire process takes to around 10 to 15 years, out of which the initial 6 to 7 years uh, are invested in the discovery part, and then the next 6 to 7 years are invested in the actual validation of whatever has been studied so far. Anything goes wrong in this step, we are again back to the square one at the first point, where we have to start all over again. So that's why a very time intensive and very expensive procedure. That is what we have always heard about the drug discovery. So in each of these steps, first, has my slide changed now?
Yes, it's perfect.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So the first step, that is target identification. Here we are finding a target that is a biomolecule which we will target, which can be a DNA, an RNA, or a protein. So first of all, we should know the role of what are the checkpoints that we should see whenever we define a target. Those have been listed over here. The first one is know the role in pathophysiology. It should have a known role in the pathophysiology. That is, if at all it is a part, what is it changes in diseased condition, that is known as the pathophysiology. So when there is a disease condition, this particular biomolecule undergoes the change, should be confirmed. Next is, it should be less important in normal or other diseased conditions, which means it should be unique, because if we are going to block it or increase the levels of that protein through our drug, then it should not affect the normal situation of the body, as well as if at all it is involved in some other disease, so that shouldn't be aggravated also. That should also be taken care. Next is, it shouldn't be druggable. Druggable in the sense, its structure and shape should be known. Like, how does it exactly look? Because finally chemical entities are what? They are chemical compounds. So how do they fit into the particular target? That we know. So, and for that we should have the shape and size information of the target. So as it is a biomolecule, it is known as the structure. Next is easily assayable. Finally, when we are going to look, in a test tube or in a gel. So extraction of that particular protein should be easy. Purification must be an easy process. Next is, it should be uniquely present. Next is, biomarker should be available. Biomarker should be available means in any change done for this protein, there should be some phenotypic effect that we should be able to see. Phenotypic means which can be readable in the form of signals or any dye or any kind of experiments where we can spot it that, yeah, if we have treated this drug, it has gone and affected this particular target itself. There has to be some indicator that is called as a biomarker. And then we should also have an idea about what potential side effects it might generate if at all it is treated. And of course, the last one, which is most crucial one, and has been a lot of this has been spoken in the last webinar about the IPR, wherein it should have a favored IPR, means the drug target should be unique for you, free for you to research on, and you should have a whole freedom and rights over working on that particular target. So that these are the few aspects that needs to be taken care of. So first of all, you should have an understanding of the entire disease and what is the basic molecular mechanism. You should be knowing that what is that exactly biomolecule doing, and then different methods through which you will be able to access, like whatever experimental techniques or bioinformatics approaches you are able to access this particular target. So this would be an ideal drug target, is what is the first step, target identification, which is itself quite huge and requires a lot of time and has many bioinformatics applications in this particular area, which I'll be discussing further. Next is generating a hit. Hit is initially known as lead. Lead is a lead means chemical entities. What we talk about, we have to generate an entire library. Means there has to be hundred thousands of compounds which we study first, which are then filtered afterwards after performing high throughput screening. High throughput screening means there are a lot of drug molecules and there is a single target, and you screen each of these molecules against this target, and then the one which fits your criteria, then those are the ones which are further selected. So this can be an experimental approach as well as virtual approach. Virtual is the one where bioinformatics comes into picture. And based on this, we lead to a selection of set of active compounds or potential drug molecules, which are known as hits. So this is how the hit generation is done. Next, once these hits are identified, we need to optimize them and then lead to its synthesis. Once synthesized, how they actually bind to the assay. As I said, the purified protein, whether it goes and binds there, and whatever desired reaction we want to see, are we able to visually count? Are we able to visually get those signals? That is the next part, which comes under drug development. Finally, after crossing these all barriers, only say 5 to 10 compounds are left, which are then further seen for. First is you have purified the protein, so there is no biological environment around it. It is just the protein environment favorable for the protein to be stable. So now we do it in cell cultures. If this particular drug shows the desired response in the cell cultures, then they are taken for. So many are rejected at this step also. So finally, next is the preclinical trials, wherein these trials are nothing but the clinical trials that are performed on animals. Once they clear these animals, one of the model animals which is used for performing this animal trials. After this step, if the drugs that reach further, then they reach a stage called as the investigational new drug. So now these are the ones which tried on human population. This happens in 3 phases, where the phase 1 consists of volunteers ranging from 20 to 100. Phase 2 consists of volunteers ranging 10 times. It's increased in the phase 2, and then more 10 times, that is from the start 100 times it is increased in case of the phase 3. And finally, if it crosses all these stages over here, the main thing is safety and efficacy. Efficacy means the ones who are having the diseases are getting treated with it, and there is no other they are quite efficient drugs. The ones with the disease are only getting cured by it, rest no. And then the true positive, true negative, false positive, so these all analysis are done over here to finally pass them to the next stage. And here the major thing that is taken care of is the toxicity, because the once in human trials, many of the drugs, what happens is till the animal trials they are very good, and further they are not able to cross the human trials because of the toxicity parameter which is there with the drugs. So many of the drugs get rejected at this stage also. But finally, the ones which clear all these barriers, then comes the new drug administration. So finally, these drugs are submitted as an to get the approval as a FDA as a drug to the FDA, that is the Food and Drug Administration. And finally, it's then by them is what we get the approval for the treatment. So this is the traditional drug discovery pipeline which is followed for each and every drug in the market that we see right now, or we have been buying since so many years. So this is the ultimate goal, that is the FDA approval, which involves 10 to 15 years of time invested, millions of money invested, as well as finally we get one winner. So it's a very tedious and a very exhaustive process that we see, and bioinformatics applications are being built in order to chip in each of these steps and to provide some relaxation over time, at least, so that we make a faster discovery. So in case of computer aided drug discovery or drug design, there are 2 approaches. What I just explained was for any new drug, wherein we start from the scratch, we don't know anything about the drug molecule. There is one more approach known as drug repurposing, where we take this entire set of FDA approved drugs and try to search that against a different drug target, and whether it passes, it is beneficial for that, which means a old drug is used but with a new purpose. So that is drug repurposing, and what I explained just now was novel drug design. So computer aided drug discovery is has chipped in case of for finding a new drug or for finding a repurposed drug also. So the first step of novel drug design, wherein target identification is one of the important steps. Therein, as I spoke about the drug target, which can be any biomolecule such as protein or nucleic acid. So the first step is we see whether the structure is, in case of computer-aided drug design, we see whether the structure is available. Structure I will get in the next slide. So yes, if yes, then fetch it from the protein data bank. Protein data bank is nothing but a public repository where most of the structures that are elucidated by experiments are getting deposited. The next step is, if no, then you look at the search for the model of the structure, which means something similar to that structure, not exactly the drug target we are talking about. For that, we have different modeling techniques, molecular modeling techniques. One of them is homology modeling. So there are many such studies which researchers carry on for the hot drug targets for which structures are not known. So these homology models are made and deposited in databases just like protein data bank. Here only experimental structures are deposited, whereas here the model structures. So one of them is Swiss model. There are others also databases where they like Modbase. So when we look at this protein data bank is PDB. So it is accessible at this particular site. This is just a snapshot of that particular of the PDB website. And here is the search bar where we can look for the target structures. So in this, the structures that are deposited are either obtained from either of the few experimental techniques such as nuclear magnetic resonance, that is NMR experiments also result in giving the structures, X-ray crystallography, and the new cryo-EM, that is cryo-electron microscopy. So if you look over here, as it is a database, in order to search, you need to know that what you're going to search for. So ideally, there are different, like we do a Google search, there is an advanced search option here where you can just write the name of the protein, whatever you know, to search whether that particular protein is there or not. So finally, being a database, it has unique identifiers, which is known as the PDB ID, which you can see over here. Here I have displayed an example of the recent COVID-19 SARS-CoV-2 protease, that is the 3CL protease, which is a main protease which has been extensively studied for drug targeting as a drug target through these in silico approaches. So this is how the text, this is a normal text file which you can open in a text pad. It is a dot, the extension is .pdb. You can visualize it, and here this header tells it is a viral protein, the date it was deposited in the protein data bank, and this is the ID. So these are the information. So this is the basic information of how the experiment was performed, who were the authors, who were the people involved, and this particular structure also gets published. So we can link it with the structure that and to study what are the actual parameters that were used for the experiment. So everything is published in this particular detail, which it is given in this journal detail, has the author and the title of the paper, which we can find it on PubMed or on the NCBI website. So this is the basic, but where is the information on the structure? So what is the structure? So for this file itself, this is the visual representation. As I said initially, the first step in mathematics is sequence, then comes the structure. The structure is what? It is, in case of proteins, it consists of these helices, this over here, and these beta sheets. These are secondary structures. When they come and get packed properly and form stable interactions, it is the tertiary and the quaternary structure. So this is the final representation that we can see when I view this PDB file in any PDB file viewer. So what is this? This is nothing but, this is how it looks in 3D space. These are nothing but the helices which are formed of these amino acid residues. So here, if you can see in the same PDB file, if you scroll down, the initial portion is this, but as you scroll down, the main information which will lead to this visual representation lies in the header atom over here. So here, this is nothing but the atom number 1, 2, 3. So this is incremental. Next comes the atom type. So in case of proteins and nucleic acids, like C, it's a carbon atom, of course, but it is Ca. It is the C alpha carbon of this particular residue, that is serine. Is my pointer visible?
Yes, yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So This is the so this is the C alpha, which is belonging to this particular serine, and this is a chain ID. If the protein consists of multiple polypeptide chains, then there will be a chain ID, and this is followed by the residue number. So the first residue here is serine, and these are its atoms, the main chain atoms. The PDB file doesn't have the coordinates for the hydrogens, and here it is nothing but the coordinates, the which are displayed onto the 3D space, that is the X, Y, Z. This is a 3D molecule, so those coordinates are given over here. And finally, these are the element names which are there. So this coordinate information is what gives us the visual representation, and this is what we mean by the structure. And so this has to be available in order to do in silico studies of this particular drug target. So now here for target identification, if through experimental structure it is available, it will be present in the protein data bank. But if we do not have the structure, then we have to model the structure. So how do we do the modeling? So first of all, if at all it is a very huge studied protein, like in case of SARS-CoV-2 itself, as it is an RNA virus, the RNA replication occurs with the help of RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. And the structure of that was elucidated the last as compared to the other proteins. So what people did it, as it is one of the most conserved proteins, which means it is the amino acid sequence is quite identical in case of all the RNA viruses. So they built many models and deposited in this particular database. So you don't have to do it again. So there are such databases. One of them is Swiss model, where the models are already built. Now, how are these models actually built? So here is one of the bioinformatics techniques, that is the homology modeling, wherein first step is template recognition, followed by structural alignment, backbone generation, loop modeling, model optimization, and model validation. Okay. So what is exactly template recognition? So here, even if we don't have the structure, we have the protein sequence. The organism is sequenced from which we have derived the protein sequence. So now we take this sequence and we do a sequence similarity search against the database of non-redundant database of sequences, that is using BLAST. BLAST is basic local alignment search tool. So what it does, it aligns your target sequence, that is also called as the query sequence, and the entire database. So it aligns with each of them and gives you a score. So if at all the sequence identity means when you place it one over the another and the same amino acid occurs at that same position, then that particular identity, that is called as identity. So like that, how many number of amino acids are there based on the total comparison done. So the query coverage is highest, means it is not necessary that if your amino acid is of 100, if your protein is of 100 amino acid length, you will it will find a best homology with all the 100 the whatever results you get, they are also of 100 amino acid. So it shifts itself and tries to do the local alignment. But however, the coverage what it should take should be, means the highest coverage which will be there, means more than 80 to 90% is expected, that whatever query I have given, out of that at least 80 to 90% has aligned. So that is called as query coverage, and plus a sequence identity of more than 30 to 40%. So at least 30 to 40% of the amino acids must exist at that particular position itself, and it should be the same amino acid. So based on this, the template recognition is then done. So once we get such sequences, we look at the structure of that, and the one with best score is then taken as the template. Now this is sequence alignment. Now based on that, we try to do a structural alignment and then generate the backbone for our protein sequence using the structure of the found identical protein sequence found through BLAST. And then sometimes, as there are these secondary structures, there are the strong secondary structures are these helices and beta sheets. However, there are few loop regions which are not having a very ordered shape. So there are softwares for modeling these particular loop. Finally, this entire model is optimized. Optimized means this is a raw structure which we have built using different template. Now we have to perform certain calculations on this so that it is optimized, which means it shouldn't be like, there are methods like molecular modeling wherein you simulate this particular protein for some amount of time and see that there is no opening, closing, or any disruption in the structure that occurs. So that is called as model optimization. And finally, the model that you get, you validate it. Well, for validation, there are many number of mathematics tools. One of them, which is very widely used, is the ProCheck tool, wherein, as we are all aware with the Ramachandran math, wherein there are allowed regions for the protein, for the amino acids, as well as disallowed regions. So we see to it that maximum more than 90 to 95% of the sequence residues lie in the allowed regions. Then we say okay for the model that is generated. So this is one of the bioinformatics technique in the target identification step of the drug discovery process. So next is virtual high throughput screening, where these ligand molecules come into picture. So what are these ligand molecules? These ligand molecules are actually chemical entities. There are different functional groups which interact with the parts of the protein. So here in this particular image, you can see this ribbons-like structure is the protein, and this is the ligand molecules. And certain spheres have been built over here. So here what we do, looking at the target, what we try to see is we first identify a pocket-like structure in that, which is known as the active site. Like active site is that particular region of the protein where a particular drug will go and bind and lead to modulation in the activity of the protein. Like there can be a change in the structure, or like that is one of the change in the activities what we can say. So excuse me. Okay, so in case of that, what we do is we take, if we want to screen a number, we don't know what kind of ligand it is. So if we want to do a ligand based search for that particular target that we have selected now, what we do is we we perform a ligand based pharmacophore modeling. So ligand based search is what you do a similarity search. Like for that kind of protein, if at all in the database there are ligand molecules which have a structural which are targeted to, like in this case now I spoke about protease. So are there protease inhibitors, viral protease inhibitors? If they are there, then how do they, what is the chemical composition of those ligand molecules? Based on this, we build the pharmacophores. These pharmacophores are nothing but spheres which are built with certain physiochemical properties. That is, these are actually functional groups. Like here we have an OH, if you have a metal ion over here or in this particular ligand, then we give property for this pair. So here whatever other ligand molecules are there which have this particular entity over here will get selected. So based on this, instead of giving the actual elements present over here, we give the properties of those which can fit in, so that we can screen multiple number of compounds. So based on these model, we do high throughput screening. So screening is nothing but we have the target, we have this list of molecules, and then we perform the screening to see which binds the best. So one can be ligand based, where we can use the chemical properties of the ligands. The other is structure based, whereas this particular structure at the active site, whatever amino acid residues are there which will be involved in acting with the or forming interactions with the ligand, those amino acids we can consider the property of those amino acids and what fits best for a ligand to bind well with it. As in here, these are the amino acid residues which are considered for binding of the for designing of the drug molecule, and accordingly the uh, chemical composition of the drug molecule is decided. So these are two of the steps for which many tools are already online present, which design these pharmacophore model based on ligand or based on the structure. So based on this, like these are the two main principal steps where bioinformatics has its role. So I'll just present few of the case studies that have been reported in COVID-19 in these in silico drug strategies. So as we all know, the SARS-CoV-2 is the viral protein which is there. So as we have to block this protein, so first of all, we will target the genome of this particular protein. So of this particular virus. So when we look at the genome of this particular virus, it has been divided into different regions such as non-structural proteins and structural proteins. So this is nothing but these non-structural proteins are involved in the they are involved in the function of viral duplication and viral polyprotein functioning, and the structural proteins are one which are present on the which are responsible for building the structure of the of that particular virus. So in structural proteins we have this spike glycoprotein S, envelope protein, membrane protein, nucleoprotein. Why I'm telling these are the potential targets that are there, which need to be targeted for finding a drug against SARS-CoV-2. This is what is being studied. So next is the non-structural proteins. So these are the enzymes which do not add to the structure of the virus, but they perform the functioning of the virus, in which the RNA dependent RNA polymerase is also one of the NSP, that is the NSP12 is the one which is RDRP. Next is NSP5, which is the main protease that I talked about earlier. So these are don't contribute to the structure of the virus, but they contribute to the protein. So when we look at the structural proteins, where will they play a role? They will play a role in the viral host interaction. So here, nothing but the way the the SARS-CoV-2 interacts has been shown over here, and how it initiates the infection, and this is how the change in the structure occurs. So this all can be captured through bioinformatics approaches such as molecular dynamic simulation, where we mimic this particular study and try to see, like, when it is bound, what are the changes that occur. So this is how, from the PDB, this is the cryo-EM experimental structure of this particular spike protein which has been made available. So these are the two subunits, and this is the main interaction which needs to be blocked so that the viral so that the COVID-19 infection doesn't occur. So this is the human ACE2, and this is the spike the viral protein S1 which is there. So there are studies where this particular what do you say, the interface has been targeted. So one such studies, for which initially I mentioned the name supercomputer. So supercomputer are nothing are huge computational infrastructure, wherein you can, these particular, as I said, the 3D representation of this, like main protease is just hundreds of amino acids. Like this entire viral spike protein which is there is around 900 amino acids single chain. So many residues are there. Then how do we deal with it? For that you require huge computational power, for which this particular case study was done, which was one of the first case studies reported in February itself on the during the onset of this COVID-19. So here what they had done is, as I said, that this particular is the drug target, and this is the region where the ligand is to be put. So here one of the main in silico approaches is the docking. Docking is nothing but you have the target, which is your lock, and ligand is your key, which goes and fits in. So it should fit the best. And how is this calculated? There are certain interactions that are calculated. Interactions in terms of non-bonded interactions, that is the van der Waals interaction, hydrogen bonding interactions, whether that is favorable to keep that protein over there. It stays there without forming any without disrupting the structure. If it has to bind properly to that particular binding site, that for which this docking is performed. So what did they do is, there was one database of these small compounds, the chemical entities. There are many databases we find. One of them is the zinc database, which has mostly all types of chemical compounds that are studied. So this particular such one database was sweet leads, wherein they had all the, as the approach here was repurposing. So here they had all the FDA approved drugs as well as plant compounds that have been known to treat these such kind of viral infections. So this entire set of around 8,000 molecules they had. So this was their ligand library. This was their target. So here they perform the in silico high throughput screening by performing molecular docking. Docking done, they got around 77 drugs that were proved to be crucial. So how did they do this? This entire structure they simulated on the supercomputer for around 1.6 microseconds, which is a huge simulation time length. And based on that, they did some clustering. Clustering is nothing but based on some property, you form different clusters, wherein here they use RMSD. RMSD is root mean square deviation, which means you take a reference structure and how much it changes. When you do the simulations, the structure form, there are some dynamics. So they calculate the root mean square, like deviation, how much it is deviated. So based on those values, they did the clustering and formed different clusters. So they formed a few ensembles. Like when you take a protein structure, it's a single structure, but in our body, it doesn't stay stagnant. It undergoes few dynamics. So to capture those, we do these molecular dynamic simulations, and then we get these different. Then on clustering, we say that, maybe this particular structure which is there might be one of the forms when it is in our body. So based on that, you select different ensembles and then you perform molecular docking on each of them. So such a study was done, and around 77 drugs were proved to be crucial. And this is one of the most cited and downloaded papers, if you see over the internet also, which has been one of the breakthroughs in performing these in silico studies for viral host interactions. So now these 77 drugs, now once these drugs what they have gone, now they have gone for the experimental validation, because through in silico whatever we predict has to undergo experimental validation to get the exact effect of those particular drug. So next is one more is like here only these are few of the drugs which were found as the best targets around from those 77 drugs. And if you look at their earlier use, it's quite similar to the respiratory diseases like this pembrolizumab, one of the drugs which was obtained as the best hit over here using this approach. It is one of the used earlier as an anti-allergic drug, has been known to use as an anti-allergic drug. This isoniazid is used as an antibiotic in tuberculosis. So these are few of the drugs out of the 77 what they have reported got best rank through this in silico approach what they did. So this was on the complex that they tried. They tried only on the protein, on the viral protein. So these also were few of them which were obtained using, which were part of those 77 drugs that were further used for experimental validation. Similarly, one of the studies also reports for the viral polyprotein functioning, wherein what they did was here they did both what do you say, the sequence analysis as well as the using the in silico drug discovery approaches also, wherein they for what they did was they checked the sequence similarity, or the how as the sequence differs from the earlier known SARS from this coronavirus family, which is the SARS-CoV and the MERS virus, and they constructed a phylogenetic tree based for this main protease in order to see that how has this virus deviated from the earlier ones, so that will the treatments used for the earlier ones be helpful for this particular virus also. So it again created this every approved data set, and this the protein target was this main protease, and then virtual screening of ligands, and based on the docking, the whatever good interactions are there, they form a score and they rank it. So the best score they picked, and those were the drugs that they reported. So these are few of the studies which were done over here for SARS-CoV-2 also, wherein the virtual screening is one of the bioinformatics techniques that has been used, as well as molecular docking and molecular simulations, which has also been used. So these are few of the applications of bioinformatics in drug discovery in the traditional pipeline, as well as where are the steps because of which it is accelerated, and more importance has given on drug repurposing, because it has reduced quite amount of time which is initially required for synthesis of those drugs and finally performing the assays, which is performed of course here also for validation, but however the research component is reduced because of these in silico techniques. So yeah, thank you. I would like to take questions if any.
Thank you, Ms. Shruti. I hope the presentation was informative for all the students and professionals gaining knowledge with respect to bioinformatics. We also got a bit knowledge about molecular docking studies, also homology modeling studies. We'll go ahead and take some questions. Just a reminder, please be sure to type your questions into the question box. It looks like we have few questions.
So one of them I read it, once we design a drug candidate, are we checking its validity in cell lines too? Yes, the trials part will always be there whenever we do the in silico predictions also. So there are many studies which are in lines with this, wherein we propose a particular molecule, and this molecule is tested in labs initially through cell lines only. And once they approve this, then they go for the trials. So that is an important step. So the whenever it comes to repurposing, the clinical trials part is also span also gets reduced because these are already approved drugs. So few of the checks are not performed because the toxicity and all has already been taken care of. So those checks are not performed. So the timeline reduces for that. Whereas for a novel drug, the initial discovery part is reduced. However, the validation of the discovery part always remains in case of novel drug discovery. Okay. How much time will it take for each compound screening? So actually it depends on, like, if you're talking about high throughput screening through virtual, then what is the size of the database that you're looking at and how many targets are you screening? So it's like if you're taking means I'm understanding this, they are talking about high throughput screening. So if you have a huge database of thousands of molecules, to screen them through, you require these supercomputers which will do it in a few days time. However, in experiments, it is going to take a lot of time because each of those drugs we need to see whether the experiments need to be performed in order to check, like there is an inhibitor molecule, you tag that with something that if particular ligand comes and binds, then give me this particular signal. So this screening, experimental screening, will take more amount of time. And what are the key parameters to note while selecting a protein? So the key parameters to note while selecting a protein is, first of all, as I said, for in silico studies, we require the structure. So whenever you're selecting the particular protein sequence, first search for the structure, whether it is present. If not, whether there are any other proteins which are homologous to that. Like I can give you an example. We have different classes of proteins, out of which membrane proteins are the most difficult to model because first of all, their arrangement is in the cell membrane, that is the lipid bilayer. So to find the exact model for that is a very tedious process, and lot of refinement through different algorithms and taking consensus from different softwares is required while modeling a protein. Else, whenever you take a protein, you have to first take care that what active site you're defining, is it right or not? Like this is the pocket where you want to study the docking or not. So those are the key parameters to note while selecting the protein. Is it necessary to select a template protein with 100% sequence identity? Okay, 100% sequence identity, if it is there, then it might be the same protein itself for which the structure is present. So why we say 30 to 40% is those are the crucial amino acids which are there, which are present. So that is the threshold on which we have been researchers have been developing the homology models. So the novelty of the homology model is when you do the further validation using molecular dynamic simulations or so, then if that stays stable, then that the generated homology model is sure is what we say. And then for validation of that model using these softwares only, where you do the check of whether all the residues, the way they have fitted, they lie in the allowed regions of the Ramachandran plot or not. So that is the important part of, and homology is never 100%. It is like homology is more than 40% of identity is known as homology. Sequence identity 100% means it might be the same protein as well. Does only minimization helps deviated protein residues to move into allowed region? It's not only minimization, it's a complete minimization. If we look at the molecular dynamic steps, so initial is a minimization where the entire energy of the protein is minimum energy is taken through this Metropolis and Monte Carlo, what do you say? Like the steepest gradient, the conjugate gradient methods are there, which we see steepest descent and conjugate gradient methods, which are used in minimization. But further on this NTP, that is at 300 on the body temperature is 310K, we do the molecular dynamic simulations at normal temperature pressure. So that time when we see, and if it stays for a long amount of time, there are different parameters. That one I spoke about, RMSD. So if that is stable, which means the structure is not much deviating now, even if you're applying forces of molecular dynamics, which means now the protein is stable. And if at all it is not a like the side chains and all get oriented well where during these particular like studies that we do, it is it is not only the minimization that allows the protein, they don't actually deviate, it is the rearrangement, what we can say, of the protein residues, and which helps them to stay in the allowed region, because finally it is the allowed regions are defined by phi and psi, which are the main chain dihedrals. So the movement of the side chain will help the main chain to get oriented well. So that is where the MD simulations help for model this valid what do you say, optimization. I guess those are the questions. Okay. We perform homology modeling for molecular docking, but what if the role of non-homology modeling when it is performed? Perform homology modeling for molecular docking. What is? I didn't get the question actually. Molecular docking is a different step. Is a completely different step. Homology modeling is basically to get the structural information about that particular protein. Molecular docking is the next step wherein you define an active site of this particular protein, wherein there are different methods to do that also. I didn't go into detail about this. It is like if you have an entire protein, what you do is there are calculations where you check the surface of that particular protein. And wherever you go through the surface, you find a more empty space, you think that the drug might go and bind over there. So these areas are calculated, and the one with the largest area, that particular gap is picked, and there is where the docking is then. So such the pocket is identified, and then the docking is performed at that particular pocket over that is identified. So that is molecular docking, and homology modeling is to know this structure. When there is a no homology modeling, which means the structure is available. So if the structure is available, there itself in the structure information, there might be information about the active site. So that there you take that particular structure as the input. Actually, I have a small demo. Can I just show? Is it okay? Because this question has come.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Is my screen visible?
Have you shared the screen?
Yeah, I scanned my entire desktop actually, but is it visible? Okay, I'll do it again. Just a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, it's now visible.
Yeah, it's visible, right? Okay, so here what I have loaded is that main protease itself. So this is the PDB structure which we have downloaded. So once we did docking of this particular protein over here, then what we obtained here was like I did the high throughput screening, and then if I want to view the number of ligands that I have done, this is a software which is called as UCSF Chimera, where I can visualize this. So here if you see, when the calculation was done for the pocket, so this was the particular pocket which was the largest where the active site of this protease is defined. So in this particular region, now this is the ligand that is there. So this is there are many ligands that I screened, which is the list over here. And now here you see this energy, the grid score. So the software that I used was DocSys, so Doc6. So this is the grid score based on which this has been what do you say, it has been placed one after the another ranked. So as it is an energy value, the lowest value is the best rank. So -50 was the minimum energy. So these are the different drugs, as you can see in this pocket itself, that got docked using docking. So this is the different, what do you say, the different drugs in that particular position only, what we can see over here. So the question was so this particular docking, what I said, was performed for the this particular docking was performed for a non-homology model only. This is the experimental structure which is already available. So docking can be done on once you know this particular protein structure and the pocket, we can do the docking. It is irrespective of whether it is a homology model or not. So this is how we look at the these are the results of the docking. So once this is done, this particular structure now what we have got just one instance. Like this was just a single, there was no dynamics here. So they calculated some distances in between this particular molecule and the residues around, and they did this particular energy calculation. But it might happen that it might not stay here also. So what we do is further to validate this docking, this entire system with the ligand is again performed, MD simulations are performed. And there, if it stays there for a long with a strong energy again, then we consider that drug can be has the as a potential binder this to this particular protein. Okay. Next, what is the future scope and opportunities in the field of bioinformatics? So currently, like in this drug discovery, what you see is now so much huge amount of data which is getting generated in case of these structures as well as homology model as well as sequencing. So these docking also now, as you said, like how much time do you require for screening a compound you asked. So major scope is now lying in the analytics parts for the bioinformatics, wherein you need to know these different machine learning techniques, the big data techniques through which what you can do. Bioinformatics Ashin understands the data as well, and if at all is able to perform the analytics too. So there is a huge scope in performing analytics in case of bioinformatics right now, wherein you need to fasten the process by understanding the data more faster and also go for more number of compounds so that they can be screened using these different new techniques. So the future scope lies in this learning the ML and different enhanced languages which can handle large amount of data. What is the role of non-homology modeling in CAD? Okay, non-homology modeling is once you have the receptor. So based on that receptor, you can do like decide, if you don't have like for a non-homology model means the structure is already available. So once the structure is already available, every time whenever dock, the target is called as the receptor and this is the ligand which comes and binds. So the receptor information is there with you. So how is the pocket of that receptor is what there are different amino acids in the receptor based on which the pharmacophores can be built. Pharmacophores are functional group entities which you can build around in that particular pocket, and based on those functional group entities you can build a ligand molecule. So if at all there is an experimental structure already present, the information is very useful to build a structure based pharmacophore based on which the new ligand can be designed. And there are different approaches to design a ligand where you select like this is my pocket, I just select this region first, I build a molecule here, then proceed further by building, and then I build the entire molecule. And then comes the experiments wherein whether this molecule what you have designed using just the structural information can be synthesized. Because here also in silico 2 actual results is lies wherein when you form this particular pharmacophore and form a chemical entity, they are quite bulky groups which you don't realize just because you look at only the interactions at that time, but chemically synthesizing them becomes difficult. So there this computer assisted drug discovery is there wherein you have to build a more optimized model over here in order to build new drug molecules. Okay.
Ma'am, there's one question. How much different is free energy perturbation from dynamic simulations?
Free energy perturbation is actually a difference between two states, what we say. Because of inducing something, there is a difference in the energy. Here what we are saying, we are doing a time step, like for a certain number of time you are simulating using this and then seeing the change in the environment. Free energy perturbation is something delta, what we say, the difference between. This is an ensemble kind of thing wherein you go on building based on it's a time dependent event where you go on seeing the behavior throughout the MD simulations. Like to study the mutational effects, wherein if I have a protein which is wild type protein structure, I know, and then I know that a mutation in this protein leads to some change in the protein. Then what you do is you mutate the residue using these softwares, and then you can study it through free energy perturbation, that what is the difference because of this particular thing. Like there it can be used. where you know the first state and the next state and you want to calculate the delta. But MD simulation is like a time series event. Yeah.
It looks like we have covered all of the questions.
Yeah.
I can see no more questions. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Shruti, is there anything else you want to cover before a wind up?
Yeah, actually, like mostly I was like there are more numbers many students who might be researchers looking at this. So as I work at CDAC, and we every year we perform like as this is one of the talks of role in bioinformatics, we have this a yearly event called as Accelerating Biology, which you can visit at our website, wherein you can get more information about what such bioinformatics approaches are there, as people are interested to know the different opportunities that are there in this particular field. So if you just visit the www.cdac.in, if you go and see there on the in the bioinformatics section, you'll see there are we have different lectures and all. So this year we had it in the month of February, but however because of COVID, the new one is not yet planned, but will of course happen in the next year. So people might be interested in that. So I request the others to go and visit the website www.cdac.in. There you can find these different opportunities in bioinformatics also, like what are the areas that they can look forward in bioinformatics, and this particular symposium also can be of very interest to them if they want to attend.
Yes, certainly. And also, is there any short internship or training program in CDAC under your group
There is
or?
no training, no training program, but for short, like as internships or as project students, we do take based on
Yes.
like they have to mail it to us, and like my mail ID is shrutik@cdac.in. So I will just maybe write it over here. So whoever are interested in doing projects, but they like now I have to check with whether they have to be physically present or not, because in this COVID-19 situation, many things have changed. But normally people used to be physically present over there for doing this. So I'll just let you know. One mail can be dropped to me telling the area of interest in which they would like to work. So short-term projects are there. Like for 6 months, we hire students for projects. That is open at CDAC in the bioinformatics group. So
Okay.
not only these structure-based studies, there are these genomics-based studies also. Like my area of expertise is in molecular modeling. However, genome, NGS analysis, such things are also there, which are performed in our group. So if at all I can forward, if somebody is interested in that too, I can forward it accordingly to the concerned authorities also. That's not a problem.
Yes, surely students nowadays face like they don't have any contact, like whom
Yeah.
to contact for
Yeah, there
that.
will
So
be
they are
like
interested.
like, yeah, we can have a small interview kind of through online interview itself. If at all we feel that that person will be worth giving a shot on that particular project, then surely we can look into it. We are open for it. Yeah,
Correct, correct.
yeah.
Okay, then thank you, Ms. Shruti, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. If you have any other questions, please contact us through the details provided on the screen. Contact us on Aposage, info@aposage.com. Once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey cum feedback form on the presentation, and we would appreciate if you could complete that and provide your feedback. We have also posted the form link in the Q&A box. Make sure you fill them in order to receive your e-certificate. You will also receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with your e-certificates and the link for YouTube channel with the video of today's webinar. We all know that involving recent molecular modeling techniques into our research is a great investment to do. Aposage provides all sorts of molecular modeling solutions with best results and execution in the form of non-plagiarized result and discussion writing. You can contact us or send us a query mail to the details provided in the QA box. We provide all sorts of molecular modeling related solutions and interaction with best professionals under this field. Our next webinar is on 22nd November on the topic World of Regulatory Affairs, Learn from Professionals. So if you guys are interested, please do join us. Till then, for more updates, stay connected and subscribe our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram. On behalf of Aposage and our presenters, Thank you for joining us today and have a great day. And also, thank you, Shruti ma'am, for giving us your precious time. Thank you.
Hope it was useful for the audience and to you all also. Thank
Yes,
you.
surely, surely.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank
thank you.